Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! In the last episode, we finished the first part of the trial of the clouded Kokoro, and now we're about to start the second part. So let's just get into it. I have considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury. And I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. Alright, so we're gonna have a second summation examination. Let's get started. The jurors' contentions. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his.
If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider.
Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it?
Dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit.
Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tiny bit of trouble.
Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes.
Yes. Considerably more tangible arguments from all members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. And moreover, no one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way.
That means, I'm afraid that during this summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts.
But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman and how? Those 2 details are all you need provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking this might be hard.
But Mr. Naruhodo, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends.
No pressure then. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, counsel. Oh, yes, my lord. All right, Ryunosuke. Focus your mind now. Clearly, the key to this summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say, Mrs. Garrideb?
We have a book that disappeared from the Garrideb's house in the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand.
There must be a way to link the 2. Yes, that's what we have to find. Using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes.
Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garrideb and how she reacts, even to the things other people say.
Ah, okay, good to know. We will have to look around while pressing everybody. The defense's rebuttal. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his.
Hold it!
But as we now know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There's every possibility that the 4th book, in fact, belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said?
That's not exactly how I put it, no.
Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife was somewhere else when it happened.
I think that's what you call a strong alibi.
So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fella. Honestly, I can't see why all this palaver's about. It's done deal, isn't it?
I suppose it is, since I've nothing witty left to say. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim stabbed, I might consider. Okay, let's try to convince you. So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my! Such that on your face! But I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I am a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see, modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? And not at all extreme. As I see it, an overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony. And despite one or two minor puzzlements, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But as modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know? So I'd be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I'd be happy to do that too, if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. I'm glad you admitted rational then. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? Hold it! But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So, no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point in even having windows, huh?
Counsel, you will kindly refrain from childish bickering.
Oh, sorry. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility that the window was open. Because this young man isn't going to budge. Because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. Dearie me, it was only a little walk, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Hold it! But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as loving incendiary mom. Yeah, well, he brought it up on himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Garrett. Never you mind that. The point is, we were just having a jovial little dispute, nothing more. And I won't have any more of these suggestions that it wasn't anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Right. Well, see about that. Oh, we'll see about that. But what about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning ahead Mr. Gerdiev's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is.
Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tiny bit of trouble.
Let's press him. You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here.
Well, him and me both then, like I said before.
What?
I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, You'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning.
What?
You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know? She can be fierce, believe you me.
Another shining example of marital bliss, then.
A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, You know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember.
Sorry?
It was too frightening. That's the thing. I must have blocked it out.
Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged into the Thames by his scarf. Didn't even go there, Miss Sosato. There must be some way to jog his memory about this.
Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes.
Hold it!
Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case?
Sorry? What's that? You'll have to speak up, lad.
Could you tell us more about that fire?
It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. I had 75 candles on the top, I did. What a sight to behold it was.
You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship?
Of course not. It was an angel cake. To celebrate my birthday, obviously.
It seems that's a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruto.
Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown rogue somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught on, and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke.
Definitely sounds like the devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold. But how did you catch a cold from a fire?
What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it.
The windows.
The biting winters, air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry.
I knew it was devil worship all along. But something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes, I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between their assertions, just a connection might do the trick. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. That's the spirit. Okay, so we pressed them all already. 3 books, doesn't matter for the 4th one. We don't have a novel explanation yet. The window was closed. The book here, that is a little bit strange. His wife is threatening him. And he had a fiery birthday. Ah, okay. So he and him should be pitted together, right?
Objection!
Alright. These two juror statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again! I told you it wasn't me!
What's that you say? Speak up, lad, speak up.
Juror number 3, do you see?
Oh, me? See what, sir?
Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows
in the middle of winter? Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... Ah, exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garrideb household. And Mr. Garrideb had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke. Oh, my head! Oh! We are going to pursue that immediately, of course. Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garrideb.
Oh, dearie me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply that I'm hiding who I really am?
It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now.
What is it?
When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window?
What? I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating?
The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window.
And what if we did? Oh, all right then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him justly deserved book battering.
Even though your house was on fire?
Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise.
Of course, I should have realized.
That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You've managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garrideb's formal statement.
Alright,
Now you mention it. Yes, the window was open at the time. I'd clean forgotten, but it's true.
Hold it!
the fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garrideb told us he had been reading.
Well, I really couldn't say.
On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading?
I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it. You're right.
Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset?
Because I couldn't, you insolent little man. I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on as well, you know?
I really don't.
I barely noticed I was throwing a book.
Boy.
Much less the title of it.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me.
Let's pursue, of course. What is it, juror number 5?
You know something? I've remembered what it was. That memory I blocked out. It was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all flooding back. Who are you?
Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrideb, or the maid, I'll have you know.
The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being hit all the time.
It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just go back home after work like. I put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day. And I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out.
Oh dear, what a disaster.
You haven't heard the half of it, boy. The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I've lost the day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear, stuck into the wall next to me it did, about an inch deep.
No words, just terror.
I could smell it then, you know, that god-awful stench of the Thames. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. No, that's a real disaster, isn't it?
I'll never use the word lightly again.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When a woman loses their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it.
Oh, knives. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a ball like...
What? Attack? Who are you going to attack?
Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think.
Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. That's awesome.
A woman in rage will hurl almost anything at you. The kitchen knife really brought that home to me.
Okay, so we have pitted him against juror number 3 already. We already had him. So maybe we are meant... Wait a second. So are we supposed to pit these two together? I mean, her and him. The window could have been open, the woman was throwing books. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. Window was open. I'm gonna try that. Oh, okay. Those two statements clearly contradict each other. I'm sorry, but as foreman of the jury, I have to object. That's completely nonsense. What?
I'm a banker, don't forget, an educated man, and there's no contradiction as far as I can see.
Quite so, Mr. Foreman. I will not permit a whimsical attack against the good members of the jury council.
There was nothing whimsical about it. It's very important to listen carefully to every juror, Mr. Naruhodo. Then you can decide whether the contradictions really lie, if there are any.
Okay, so that's not it. I'm just wondering, so they can still be pitted against it. Okay. So we did that already, so this doesn't work. Was open. I clearly forgot. So these are supposed to be pitted against each other. No, they aren't. Okay. Okay, I messed up again. Oh, now I have to be careful. I made 2 mistakes already. That's not good. Three books of his. So she says something too. What about these two then? Okay, that actually works. Those two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection.
Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once.
Juror number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative?
Oh my, whatever do you mean?
An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back.
What are you talking about?
We've demonstrated that the 4th book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garydeb's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object beside the book could have found its way from the Garydeb household to the street below.
What's that now?
After all, Mrs. Garydeb could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4?
What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole?
I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this big book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened.
Now you listen here, you Eastern Gower. As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the household, but what? What was it?
I'm really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Garrett household to the scene of the crime was, and it has to be the jackknife. We examined that already, but all it does is spring out, and that's all it actually does, nothing else. And if we examine it again, it just goes back. So I'm going to present the knife. Juror number 4, Mrs. Garrideb.
What? What now?
I must apologize in advance for this, but I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before?
Ah!
Good Lord, Counsel, what on earth are you doing? What's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man?
My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrideb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who'd been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene.
You can't seriously believe that the book was found in the victim's grasp.
Are you saying that it flew out of the window and crossed the street to land neatly in her hand?
Huh? Even my missus hasn't got any aim like that.
Yes, I admit there are many details we don't yet understand. But that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end. Not right now.
Oh my!
Mrs. Garrideb, your answer please. Have you seen this knife before or not?
Oh! Ah!
My lord.
I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all.
Thank you, madam.
Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end, and now with so many unanswered questions.
Mr. Foreman.
I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it, mind.
Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either.
All together now, ladies and gents.
Aha! We did it!
We did it!
Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruto!
So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided. And this trial will continue. Alright guys, we actually did it! We swayed the jurors. But we almost reached the half-hour mark, so thanks so much for watching for this episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. If you want to know how things unfold further, you'll have to tune next time when we play again the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. See you then.